He's coming. He's coming. Hello and welcome to the Gunnersaurus. That is the worst intro I've ever done in my life. And that's probably the most you're going to hear from me for the rest of the evening, because if you hadn't seen from Twitter, my voice is utterly destroyed. And after tonight's show, it's probably going to be made even worse after tonight's show. But that's why I've got a couple of lovely guests with me to talk about this stuff. First of all, Owen, absolute pleasure to speak to you, mate. How are you doing?
I'm so glad that didn't go wrong for you. There was a lot of room for error within that intro, and I'd just like to say on behalf of everybody watching, thanks for nailing it. You know, it would have been pretty unpleasant, I'd say, if it had went wrong for you.
Yes, there was a moment when the shirt was halfway off where I could feel a tugging going on in the lower down part of the shirt. Like, this could go horribly wrong. Horribly wrong. Jared, absolute pleasure to have you on the show as well, mate. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having me back. And I've been following the show for a long time, and I think it's easily the best intro I've ever seen.
Oh God, it could have gone. I'm really petrified now. Of just like, I'm gonna have to watch this back and just reveal if any skin was shown at all. But I'm pretty sure I got away with it. So it's all good. It's all good. As I said a second ago, I'm relying on the guys that are coming on the show this evening to do a lot of the talking, because my voice still is not, as you can probably tell from it being a little bit more dulcet than it usually is, to get through this. But it's a wonderful day. We should be expecting a couple more guests throughout the show. But I can see you in the chat box. Everyone is going mental, which is good. Now, what the worst thing about this is that we do these shows at 9 o'clock, usually podcast, because the latest time in the UK you can really do one. Mostly because, and it's nothing to do with logistics, it's just because if I did this later, the missus would kill me. It's as simple as that. I'd be keeping her up ranting on about Partey and Asensio and Jobbersley until she couldn't sleep any longer. So that's why the main reason why we do it at 9. But it also means that, of course, he isn't actually an Arsenal player yet, at which I've put myself in a very dangerous position of getting clipped and memed by every other football fan, every other Bible-based sports Facebook account on the planet. So let's all pray, not only that he signs, but I'm not embarrassed in this. But yeah, it's great. I mean, I'm going to talk about it as if it is going to be done, because I'm pretty much committed at this point. I don't think there's any going back. Owen, let's go to you. I suppose we should tell the story of the WhatsApp group first, shouldn't we?
Oh, for sure, yeah. They should make a movie out of it.
There's the first drink of the day, by the way. I've got two cups ready because I'm going to need them. I'll probably have to run downstairs at some point and refill. Yesterday, I went through 12 litres of water, and that's not an exaggeration. That's genuinely how much I drank. It was a joke. So there was only two things I was doing that day. One of them was drinking, and I think you can guess what the other one was. So, but anyway, the WhatsApp group was this morning at, I think it was 10 to 12 a.m. Our good friend Wayne, who obviously shares a lot in common with Owen over the Irish Sea, and he he put in the chat box and just went, "Party time," and at this point we're like, "Oh Wayne, come on, just stop messing about." And at this point, no one's really said anything, bar the obvious Bell. No one else has said anything by this point. We've not heard anything from any of the other ITKs, none of the people on. And we should say, I'm going to hold my hands up, a massive apology to the Bell for ever doubting him in any way. But no other ITKs or journalists have put anything out at this point. And Wayne was like, "Yeah, it's happening, lads. Like, it's happening." Yeah. And then we were everyone. No one believed Wayne at this point, and we were all going in the chat box going, "Yeah, no, no, you're not having this." And there's a running joke about Wayne, because he got a transfer wrong about a couple of years ago where he said it was 97% done. And so every time that Wayne puts any transfer rumour in there, we're all just like, "Is it 97% done yet, Wayne?" And he was like, "No, it's 100% getting done." And then he posted a picture of Thomas Partey's cousin wearing an Arsenal shirt. And at this point, we're going, "You are clutching at the longest of straws at this point." And then, believe it or not, like the Charles Watts tweets out that we are pushing for this to happen today. And at this point, Wayne's losing his mind in the chat, just giving everyone the middle finger, theoretically, in a WhatsApp group. So basically, it boils down to all of us have now got to go and buy Wayne Guinnesses because he's absolutely smashed it. Owen, talk to me about your reaction to this news, mate.
Do you want to know what? I'm sort of similar to yourself in that sense that until I see him standing holding the shirt, I'll not be completely satisfied. You know above anybody, Tom, that I'm not great with
shirt. It
no,
might be
this one. You know better than anyone. I'm not great with my nerves at the best of times. I sort of, display myself as quite a patient, logical thinking person, but I'm anything but that. I always sort of take a lot of talking down by the likes of yourself, Drew, John. But look, this deal looks like it's going to be getting done. We were discussing pre-pod that a lot of the time the news outlets are probably about an hour or so behind where the deal actually is. So right now we could be sitting here, the deal could be completely wrapped up, and it's just a case of getting the videos and official pictures out there. In terms of what the signing does for us, this is the one that I've been preaching about since the minute the transfer window opened, since there was a realistic link there. For me, it was Partey above everybody. I think that he completely transforms this Arsenal side, probably to the point that and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I really do think this, probably to the point that no other player in the world transforms Arsenal, I think. I think that Thomas Partey brings in detail literally every single thing that Arsenal lacks within a midfield. He brings the physicality, the dynamism, a bit of quality on the ball. He's got tactical discipline from playing under Simeone for so long. And not only that, I think that a lot of people were sort of set on Aouar coming in and providing that creativity. But what I will say is just sit back and watch. And if Partey plays to the level he has that he did at Atleti, then you can expect improvement within our other midfielders' games. The likes of Granit Xhaka is going to have that safety net behind him and have a bit more freedom to express himself the way he probably does, for his national side. That's why he often performs better for his national team. And Dani Ceballos now has more of a free license to roam, or Willian, whoever that is playing centrally. I think we all sort of assumed that if Partey did come in, that we would probably revert to 4-3-3, and that's what I expect to happen. We sort of even seen Arteta tinkering with it against Sheffield United. But to sum it up, look, as I said, and again, I'm watch videos back, watch messages. I'll put everything up from the WhatsApp group chat. All along, I've said there's not a player on the planet that I would rather have come to Arsenal than Thomas Partey. And for Mikel and Edu and Vinay, and look, even let's give them the credit if this comes off, the Cronkies too, at probably one of the, definitely the most difficult time financially in the club's history. They've pulled off a marquee signing that I don't think that anybody expected us to get done. When we've been talking about the finances in the club, somebody that I heavily rely on for my information regarding the finances around football is Drew, and I would take every single word that man says as gospel, and he pretty much said that unless we see substantial outgoings for sort of decent fees, that this deal wouldn't have been doable. And all we've really seen is Emi Martinez move on. So for the club to pull this off, I think it's just absolutely phenomenal.
It is on a different. I mean, I was going through the videos because people were tweeting me all day saying who didn't know about Partey effectively and need to know, and I was like, I'm so thankful. I've done about 50 million videos on Thomas Partey by this point. I think I've done 3 tactical breakdowns on him. One with obviously Graham Hunter and 2 with Kieran, and of course a couple with John Driscoll as well. We did one back in January, and the one we did back in January, John basically turned around and said, "You've got no chance of signing Partey." So yeah, that's come back to bite John a little bit, but he was very happy. I will speak to him a little bit later on this evening and talk to him about that. Apparently my volume's gone down. I don't mean it to. Maybe I'm not close enough to my microphone. Jared, this sort of is, in my opinion, and I agree with Owen, the better of the 2 signings that we could have made. Aouar yesterday I mean, how funny isn't it? The emotions we've gone through in 24 hours. It's crazy. But Aouar was kind of that creative force that we needed in sort of the team. I'm not saying that Aouar is a deal that I'm annoyed that we didn't. Or I'm not annoyed that we didn't get done, because I wish we had Aouar on top of Partey 100%. But I've always kind of felt that the Partey style player we've not had since Patrick Vieira left. Like, just haven't had that player. And we've always been saying that we've needed to replace Vieira, and we just haven't. And for me, this is the closest that we're ever going to get to doing that. So talk to me about, are you happier with Partey than Aouar, or are you the other way around?
No, I'm absolutely thrilled with having Partey in. There was a time, I mean, recently it's kind of gone back and forth. And I think last week, I spoke to you guys too. I thought that there was a point when I thought Aouar may be the more likely to happen. Obviously that didn't come to be, but no, I'm thrilled with Partey. I think we've spoken at length previously about, which one we would rather have. And I think we were all in agreement that while Aouar is a very good player and we'd love to have him, if we had to pick one or the other, I think all three of us wanted Thomas Partey. So, I'm thrilled that he's here and he solves a whole lot of problems for us. I think he opens up the door to, we talked about a change in formation. I think he just gives us so much more flexibility because he can do so many things well. Obviously at Atleti, he played in more of a defensive midfield role in some cases, but he's also shown that he really is, I think, a true box to box. He offers a little bit of everything. His dual win rate is huge. His dribbling is very good. His forward passing is very good. I think he just gives us a lot of options, having a player like that in there who can do a lot of different things. And I know a lot of people wanted Aouar for the creativity, which he obviously would bring. But I think another point that Owen kind of alluded to is that having Partey in the team, allows us to bring Ceballos forward in the midfield, potentially Willian back in a number 10 role if we played any of a 4-2-3-1. That allows some of those guys to be in a more creative position. Someone like Ceballos, I think moving forward, we would see a little more of what he can bring, because I think he has the creativity in his game. It's just a matter of, what his role is in the formation we're playing. So I think it's a phenomenal signing. 45 million is a steal, having that release clause. If that wasn't the case, he would have cost, if they would even sell him, I'm guessing it would have been, 65, 70 million range they would have demanded. So it's a great bit of business for Arsenal. Like you said, he's the type of midfielder we've needed and have lacked for a long time. So I'm absolutely thrilled with it.
Yeah, go on, Owen. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to follow on from something Jared mentioned there, and it was something that we tend to do, not only us, all fans of all clubs, and it's to draw comparisons of past legends. But in this case, I don't think it could be any more justified. I'm not sure. Maybe some of the people, I'm not old, but I remember Patrick Vieira very well from growing up. He was one of my favorite players, and I actually don't think that comparison is made enough. Go back and watch, whether it's highlight videos or just watch a little sample size of both players. I think you're looking at probably the most comparable player to Patrick Vieira since Vieira. I do, and this is something that I said a couple of weeks ago on your pod, which was that I didn't want the club to go and try and sign a B-Tech Partey because I don't think it exists. I don't think. If anybody in the chat or yourselves, boys, can throw out a player comparable to a decent standard that plays in the same mold as Thomas Partey, I'd be shocked. I don't think there is any. You can draw similar comparisons, like, his defensive style is maybe similar, his dribbling style is maybe similar, but in terms of a complete package, I think he's just completely unique in the modern game. There isn't many players like him, and as Jared said, the flexibility he gives us, because he is not only competent in the majority of aspects of the game, he's brilliant at the majority of aspects of the game. I think that there isn't a situation that you could drop him in that he would look out, out of his comfort zone.
I agree 100%. And another man who is perfect in his own comfort zone is Mr. Lee Judges. How you doing, mate?
Hey, how we doing? You all right? All good. All right, lads. How we doing?
Not too bad, buddy. Getting there. Stressed now.
Good.
How are we feeling? Lee? Let's get your immediate reaction.
Never in doubt. Do you know what? I'm going to say this now. Whether I'm being, you might think I'm being greedy. I'm still not I'm still a little bit disappointed.
I didn't expect any less.
Partey's great for us, but I wanted Aouar as well. Like, you know what I mean? And apparently, I've just been told that they're still trying. But if they were to complete madness, that would be. Listen, if they were to get both of them, it would be, I think, an unbelievable transfer window. But as somebody said, you know what I mean, that this transforms us a little bit. This one, and it does put us in I think, in a good position going forward. I really like, so yeah. I'm quite. Listen, you can't not be unhappy about this, can you? Do you know what I mean? It's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? It's absolutely. I mean, well, you're obviously in the chat with us. You're in the chat with us this morning, and we saw Wayne in the chat box telling us it was party time, and we were all sitting there. I mean, you were saying to us in the morning you didn't expect anything to happen. It was all quiet, and now we turn around and this has sort of happened. I mean, it's so funny you bring up Aouar there. We're panicking that we might not get this deal over the line, and we're talking about another one possibly getting done in like the next 2 hours or so. But we were just saying, Lee, before you joined us, that this deal is kind of comparable. In my opinion, we haven't replaced Patrick Vieira in the 15 years since he left.
Yeah.
And this is the closest I felt that we're going to get to doing that.
Yeah, I think it's on the same thing, and I think that's a great point. We've been crying out for some. I think that at long last we've got, like, I think, let's not underestimate the signing of Gabriel as well, like, because him coming in has given us a lot of strength at the back. But now we've got someone to protect that in the front. Now, as good as our central defenders were, Adams, Bold, Keown, Sol Campbell and everything like that, they always had Patrick Vieira in front of them. And if you talk to Martin Keown always says, Patrick, Edu, and Gilberto and Vieira, Petit made our job easy for us, made defending easier for us. So all of a sudden now we're going to have that protection in front of us. That is a big plus for us, and I think that it'd be interesting to see how we go. Will it be Xhaka and Partey, and then maybe Danny Ceballos being pushed forward a little bit now, like, so I think that'd be probably the way to go. But Wayne said it in there, like, the fella that I speak to on the contact, he's, has always said from day one, as we said, it was always going to be Partey and Aouar, and I think that there's no doubt that Arsenal have tried to get Aouar, and there's no two ways about that. Whether they go back in January when that maybe, it's only a few months, maybe that's what they're going to do, but. I'm still hearing, that Lyon are desperate for money, and they've not got what they want. So could it be? He's only got to have the agreement. He ain't got to do anything. As long as the two sides agree, then it can go until tomorrow and the next day. So who knows? I'm waiting for some madness, boys. I'm waiting for some madness.
Unreal.
Speaking of madness, I'm not sure what the crack is with this. Maybe you can clarify it for me, Tom. You're talking about the possibility of getting Aouar as well, Lee. The only way that could make logical sense to me is if they had this money for Partey stored away, which we had mentioned on numerous occasions, that we wouldn't want to outlay a big amount of money because it would show our hand and it would possibly hike the price up of Aouar. But the only way, oh sorry, buddy, the only way I could see that being a realistic possibility is that, and this is one you might want to talk about, is we've heard this thing that we have triggered Partey's release clause and then withdrawn Torreira's loan. It's not true. It's not true.
The loan went through, I believe. Yeah.
Did it? Yeah. No, because I was thinking
a opportunistic tweet, shall we say?
Okay.
Someone. But speaking about the Aouar thing, my biggest suspicions, and Lee can feel free to correct me if he's in the know about any of this sort of thing. But my suspicion is that this is a very, very similar thing to what happened with the Pepe deal last season, in that Arsenal were helped by the ownership in some senses to get this deal over the line. Now, these helpings never get published. They're never sort of publicized. They're kind of done, not sneakily, but they're just done around the back, shall we say. And I have a suspicion that we've come down to the fact that we wanted both of them. And if we'd have been able to get a lot more players out of the door, we might have got both of them. However, that's not materialised. Yeah. You've also got to think about that we wanted to try and get Aouar for a lot cheaper than what Lyon were asking for. Now, what Lee's telling us there is if that is the case, that because Lyon are desperate for money and we've kind of called their bluff and changed our target and spent the money that they didn't think we had on someone else, they are panicking now. And I don't discredit that at all. I think there's a real possibility because Lyon desperately do need to counterbalance the funds from them not being in Europe this season. They're in a bit of trouble now because of that. And they actually thought that Depay was going to be going to Barcelona as well. And that doesn't seem to be happening because Barcelona don't really have the money without selling the likes of Dembele. So that could be stalling too. Coming back to the original point, though, is that I have a feeling that because we missed out on Aouar, the club still didn't have sort of enough money to press forward with a Partey without them turning around to someone who holds the purse strings and go, look, we need this little bit of backing to get this deal done. Arteta is desperate. Arteta vouches for this transfer. And Arteta said from the start, and Lee, to be honest, I said to you, and I said to you in the chat, I was like, I felt it was wrong to say that Arteta was lying. So I'll let you respond to that, because when he said that in the press conference and you tweeted out saying that you felt that Arteta was lying to the fan base when he said that he'd been backed. So do you think that maybe kind of how moods changed, how emotions change 24 hours later, how do you feel about what he spoke about?
100%. I actually never said myself. I said that fans would if things weren't backed, you know what I mean, like fans would react to that, you know what I mean, because, you know, and myself personally as well, because, you know, I'm gonna be honest that since, you know, Arteta's come into the club, I've lived on every word he said. I've, you know, from the way he's conducted himself, you know, if he tells me that Eddie's better than Lacazette up front, I believe him, because he has convinced me of everything there, and he has actually said that, you know, and he even said yesterday, you know, things will be done, and I will say this: he said signings, you know what I mean, not just signing, you know what I mean. So he did say signings. So and you know, everything that he's told us is true, and he did say that, you know, they're going to back me, trust me, and again, he's given us no reason for us not to, and I think that, listen, I honestly think what's happened, and I'm not saying that I'm in the know. People tell me, you know, I've got a few people that claim to be in the know and all that, and to be honest, they've given me great information. They said about Gabriel, and the same fella said to me about Gabriel, said about Partey, and he said about Aouar. I believe that Arsenal have tried to do a structured deal with Lyon, like they probably did with Lille last season for Pepe. Tried to do, you know, blah, 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 trying to get it that way. I believe, and this is what I'm being told, whether it's true and you can believe this or not, that Josh and Edu went to the Cronkies and said, look, we need money for saying, and he's stumped up the money for the Partey one. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. You know what I mean? Now, he might well have done that by changing the loan for the stadium or whatever to give him a little bit of funds or whatever. Who knows? But that's what I'm being told. Obviously, to get in Aouar, they needed to get people out. Now, that's not necessarily saying that they didn't have the funds. It's also to do with wages. It also does, you know, with the squad thing and everything like that. And let's be honest, guys. Arsenal have not got out what they wanted to get out of. You know, they've still got a chance of getting out players, i.e., Saliba hasn't gone today, which there was talk about him going. We've still got time. There's people like a couple of the youngsters that have gone out on loan today, but there's still a few there. Socrates could still go on loan, but again, we've not heard nothing. The Mustafi one went very, very quiet. I think that I'm looking at that and thinking that Arteta, after David Luiz's performance on the right side of defence, he's maybe thinking, well, I'll have a look, you know, I'll keep him until something better comes along. So I think that we've had to do this transfer window with one hand tied behind our back because of the players coming out. Now, these players now that I've mentioned, all their contracts will be finished this time, next, you know, in the next summer transfer window, and you've got more of a chance of getting the targets that we want. And you know, I do feel that Arsenal tried everything that they could to get their Aouar one done as well. Like, but the sticking point, as far as I can see, and what everybody's saying, they wanted 60 million for him. You know, now this is 60 million for a player that's, you know, is a prospect. He's a very, very good player, by the way. But maybe Arsenal felt that, you know, well, you called their bluff a little bit and said, okay, well, you know, we're not prepared to pay 60. So somewhere along the line, you have to, you know, I know we're not in the same ballpark as Man United, but Man United have been caught in the same position with Jordan Sancho. I know, you know, they haven't been able to agree a price. And they think that is the case. Now, people like myself are saying, oh, yeah, spend the 60 million to get it done right. But if the club feel that, again, if Arteta doesn't feel that that's the right price, then I'm going to again go along with the man, you know. So that's how I think that. I think Arsenal have done everything in their power to try and get these two players. So, but it's just not happened. And we've got Partey, and I think we've got to be pleased with that, haven't we, really?
Yeah, 100%. Jared, do you want to come and talk about those Aouar comments?
Yeah, I think Lee is spot on, and I think something else that said a lot is people complaining about the Aouar deal not getting completed, the club not, you know, bringing up the money to meet the 60 million evaluation. And to be honest, Aouar, if they need to sell at Lyon, they need to sell. Other teams could have come in and met that 60 million if he was worth that. Other teams potentially would have come in and made that offer or tried to make that same deal to get him in. I think he's a very good player and he's a valuable player, but at some point, when you set a valuation on a player, you can't win a negotiation unless you're willing to walk away when it hits the point that you say, you know, that's more than what he's worth or worth to us right now. So I think that's an important piece to understand, that while we didn't do that deal, neither did anybody else. So I don't think that it's a case that he's hands down, no question, worth 60 million and we just wouldn't stump up the money for it. I think it very well may be we had a number in mind, and if we could come to some sort of agreement, be it through installments or whatever, we were happy to bring him on. But when it gets beyond that point, you have to be willing to walk away and kind of protect what you do have in terms of finances, especially if it is potentially limited based on what we're hearing. I think the other thing to note there is when you're looking at Aouar versus Partey is a proven over a number of years star midfielder, fantastic player. He's done it both in La Liga and the Champions League. He's, I believe, just turned 27 this summer. So you're putting out a big fee, but you're getting a guy who's a proven commodity in his prime, and you're going to have him for the next 4 years, all of his prime, versus with Aouar, like Lee said, you're getting a very good prospect, but it's a huge outlay of funds for a guy who's had some good seasons. And I don't mean to downplay him, because I think he is quite good, but he's just not as proven as Partey. And I think that should and probably did play a major role in what we're looking to spend on these guys.
Yeah, something you alluded to there, Jared, that you sort of almost covered what I was going to say, but I think that this is a habit that we have got ourselves into, and it's when we're looking at transfers. It's a good habit to be in, don't get me wrong. When we're looking at transfer targets, we look at resale value, we look at, you know, potential increase in market value down the line, which is obviously good for business. But let's not forget, yes, it's a business, but football isn't all about business. You know, it's good to get in these, you know, well, although he was slightly proven already, Kieran Tierney's, Gabriel Saliba's, Gabriel Martinelli. It's good to get these people in, but you need proven winners within them, within your side. And something that we are getting, that I don't think people really take as much into account, is you're getting a standard setter with Thomas Partey. He's been performing under Diego Simeone for years at a high level, and it was one of his favourite players. We've all seen the apparent rumours of how furious Simeone is with the fact that Arsenal triggered the release clause. So what we are getting there is somebody that will walk out and give 100% every training session, take on board every bit of advice. And what that then does is, if you're standing beside a guy who's doing that in the training ground, will you say, well, I'm going to have to live up to this standard now too? You know what I mean? So this is somebody I think really falls under the sort of same mentality as Arteta, and that can only be a good thing for the squad as a collective, having a character like that within it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, there's actually more that's happened this window. I mean, there's still stuff that apparently is. I mean, Lee, you were talking there about Aouar. Whether or not that happens, we will wait to be amazed. We will see. But there are two other signs that supposedly Arsenal can actually make today. We're looking at the 18-year-old Swedish striker Moller, however we pronounce that. Supposedly the next Zlatan Ibrahimovic. So he's going to bang some goals in for us. And then we've got a centre-back, I believe, from Hertha Berlin, Omar Rekic, who is the brother of a Rekic that used to play for Manchester City, if I believe, who was sort of a youngster there. So there's two more coming in. What you won't see anymore, though, is 18-year-olds coming in from European clubs after the close of today's window. You won't see that anymore because as the UK leaves the EU on the 31st of December, it won't be, those players will need work permits. And that can be really tricky. And in fact, I think FIFA blocks the movement of 16 to 18-year-olds for non-EU to EU transfers from those age groups. So that's why you've seen this window. We brought in George Lewis from Norway. We brought in Salah Adine from Feyenoord, who left there a while before we actually signed him, but it still fell within that remit. And now today we're looking to bring in those two youngsters as well. So Arsenal are taking and making the most of that, which is also good. There might be a deal. A Bulgarian Gunner says there that Omar Rekic will join in January. So there might be a deal that's done now and then he goes back on loan for 6 months or whatever. But there is apparently that's what's going on. So we will wait and see. I've certainly got a couple of contacts ready if these deals do go through to get some tactical breakdowns done for you guys. So don't you worry. We will cover those in detail. Lee, just before we I know we're rounding down on time for yourself this evening, but just before we let you go, I want to kind of look at the transfer window as a whole. If this hadn't have happened, the complete meltdown upon the conclusion of this window would have been catastrophic. The Partey signing is not just transformative in terms of what happens on the pitch, but it's certainly transformative in the fans' moods come the end of the window. You would have said that you would have liked seen Aouar come in. So in kind of a classic hat of 10 scenario with the likes of Gabriel coming in, Willian coming in, Ceballos coming in on loan, a lot of youngsters being made to come in as well. How do you rate this window?
I think it's a good strong 7 out of 10. Don't forget also Aubameyang signing a new contract. That's to come into that sort of way of thinking as well. So from that point of view, I think it's pretty good. I'm disappointed we haven't got Aouar, but as people have put in the comments and saying earlier on that Saka could play that role as well. So maybe they've looked at it and thought, well, okay, we can't get him now. Let's see if we can develop Saka a little bit more because I thought he was outstanding yesterday again. So and we don't want to lose him in all of this as well. Do you know what I'm saying? Where we've got too many players and he doesn't get the games that he deserves because, as you say, Martinelli's got to come back at some stage on the left side. So I think it's been a good window for us. I think that we've also got to remember that we got Mari in as well, who looked quite solid. Before he got injured against Manchester City last season, which seems to be forgotten. Disappointing parts of it, Aouar. And also, I'm going to have to bring up Cedric. What was all that about? I don't understand that signing whatsoever because I would have liked to have seen the Cedric money with £3 million on the loan fee. I know we got him on free, but we still had to pay a loan fee. Could have that gone to get Aouar, and things like that. So I think there's been some good things. Certainly there's a lot of pluses. We haven't been able to get rid of the players out of the door, and that's been the problem. And the reason that we haven't been able to do that, Tom, is because the wages are too high. These players are on big wages. So you're asking players, clubs to come in and with the pandemic as it is and take players on 100 grand a week, which hasn't really happened. Don't forget also we sold Martinez in this window, which was 20 million, which was a lot more than what it would have been before Leno got injured, I think. So we've made some money there, but again he was easy to sell because one, he was doing really well and he wasn't on big money, so clubs are prepared to pay a little bit more extra on the fee. So Guendouzi's going. That's I think that's a good thing for him more so than the club. We needed to do that. He's young. He deserves a chance. He deserves to play football. So we've done that. Torreira, I think, is a good thing. But we've lost a couple of midfield players out there and only got one in. So so I can't go around and say it's been an absolute fantastic window. But on the whole, we've got to be saying it's a good window. We've got to be pleased with it. As I say, I think that there is room for improvement, but I think that you have to look at it and say that it's going to be stepping stones to get what Arteta wants. And if we can then in the next window get another couple in and a couple out, all of a sudden it's looking like we're doing the right thing. So it'd have been fantastic if we was Chelsea and could get in 7 or 8 players, but it wasn't to be. Listen, on Saturday we was on meltdown, and one of the reasons that a lot of fans are on meltdown, Tom, is because we've been thrown all these excuses. We've got no fans going in, this and that, and then down the road they were spending money, and the fact of the matter is, I don't know how you guys felt, but going into Sunday's game, I was a little bit deflated because of what had happened. They went and signed a couple of players, and look what's happened from there. The feel-good factor come back in. They was in a lot of trouble, by the way, but they've brought a couple of players in. It re-energised their fans. The fans were getting on the back of the ball, and all of a sudden, you're all forgiven. They've got Gareth Bale. Hopefully now with Partey coming in, it gives us the boost now to kick on again. I think that I think the fan base is what I'm getting and what I'm seeing on Twitter is re-energised. So I think from that point of view, it's a great signing. And I think that it was saying, which is a great point, is that we've got Partey in as right now. He's 27 years of age. He's primed. Yeah. That's what we want to go along with a few of the youngsters we've got. Sacco, Martinelli. I think that it's a good little blend. Don't forget, Danny Ceballos is only 23. So we've got players now, Xhaka and Partey at 27, 28. We've got a few youngsters in there. That I think it's a good mix of players we've got. So all in all, we've got to be pleased with what we've done. And I just want to see it just confirmed now, even though I know that it is. I just want to see it just so I can sleep well tonight. I don't want to be going to bed and it's still not happening, guys. I want it being done before I go to bed tonight.
No, I mean, I'm getting up at 5:30 tomorrow morning for work, and I plan on staying up until I've seen it. I can't go to bed knowing that I might get clipped for the intro that I put on at the start of today's show. Lee, thank you ever so much, mate. I'm going to let you go so we don't run over time for yourself.
No worries. Thank you very much. Good luck with everything, guys. Lovely to talk to you.
You too, mate. I'll make sure I call you out for the Aouar stuff if it happens or not. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Get me back if it goes on. Get me back. I'll be partying in here, I'll be dancing around naked.
Is that play on words, mate? Is that play on words? You'll be partying. Is that what you're going to be doing? Wonderful stuff. See you soon, mate. Have a good one,
guys. See you later on. Bye.
Well, there you go. You've heard it from the man himself. Aouar could be still coming to the Arsenal. Incredible.
See, just to follow on from Lee there, you were asking him about a rating out of 10 for the window, and I think it was Mike Hernandez that actually threw a really sort of valid point into the chat, which was that if there was no mention of Aouar,
make a good point. I'm only joking.
No, he can't really, which was why I spotted it so quick. They're very rare nowadays. No, but if Aouar wasn't mentioned, would people rate it higher? And I remember a few weeks ago just before the transfer window opened, you asked us what our perfect window would be, and it was when the Gabriel links had only really started, coming about, and my exact words were, if we can tie Aubameyang down to a contract extension, if we can get Danny Ceballos back on loan, Gabriel, get Willian in, and Thomas Partey, that's perfect for me. So if you're talking about a rating out of 10, because I said that, and that was my expectations, you have to factor things into, like, the current financial climate, the impacts of COVID. That's a 9, and the only reason I wouldn't give it a 10, if this deal, obviously, for Partey gets announced. I'm still nervous. The only reason it's not a 10 is because of the lack of outgoings that we've seen from the so-called dead wood. But again, look, as we have seen from a lot of clubs around the Premier League and around Europe, the vast majority of deals that are going through is are loan deals. So that's proven once again the impact that all clubs are facing at the minute. So I think we'll have to take that into account, because as we always complain about, our players are on wages, completely undeserving wages, and to make somebody take a pay cut while they have a contract sitting there, it's near on impossible. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it, for a club who wants to try and push you out the door. You don't really owe them much, So I think we need to factor in that when we're doing an out of 10 rating, But apart from that, in terms of the incomings, if this Partey deal comes off, it's a 9 from me.
Yeah, I think that's a completely fair assumption, because we wanted to do more in this window. We needed to address the creative side, I think, of our midfield, and we've not yet done that. Chris in the chat put, how is this window not a 10 out of 10? We signed 2 transformative talents and extended a 3 transformative talents as well. And I think it's a good point. I think that this is a solid 8 out of 10, and the Aubameyang sort of contract brings it up to a 9 out of 10 for me. I think there's a little bit about the fact that we weren't able to get enough players out. I genuinely think that comes into how you sort of evaluate that. Jared, do you want to come in on that as well?
Yeah, I sort of agree. If I had to rate it, I would give it a 9. I think actually the first time I ever came on the show with you, we talked about, as Owen said, getting Gabriel, getting Ceballos back on loan, getting Willian, and then adding maybe one more midfielder was what we all were talking about. I think that was back when Coutinho was being talked about and that. But I think the window now has kind of met all of our expectations or hopes for what we were going to do this summer. Only reason I say 9, I'm on board with you guys. The outgoings, certainly we would have liked to see a lot more of those guys go. But the reality is, you see a lot of people saying, how can the club not sell X, Y, and Z? But at the same time, if you turn around and said, hey, how would you feel right now if a player like Kolasinac was available? Would you want to pay $15 million for him and bring him in, paying him $100+ a week? They would say, no, you're crazy. Which is right, but you're expecting other teams to do that when you say we should sell him. So it's just tough. And the same could be said about, Socrates. I don't think he would bring a big fee, but again, who wants to pay his wages? It's a little bit odd, I think, when we expect other teams to do something that we would never do ourselves. I think that's just putting kind of an unrealistic expectation on what's possible. And as far as the Aouar deal not getting done, unless Lee is right and something happens last minute that'll set the internet off, I don't think that's a huge deal. Like I said, we've done everything I kind of thought we needed to or expected to. And the other thing is, people say, well, now you can't sign or look to sign somebody until January. Well, it's not a typical year. It's already October and we're on an international break. So you're talking about 6 weeks worth of games and we're in the next transfer window. So that'll come around pretty quickly if there is more business we couldn't get done that we want to. So I think that's possible as well, and something we could potentially see. But for this window, I give it a 9, and I'm thrilled with it. Absolutely.
Yeah. You can't really look much past it. Go on, Anne.
No, something I was going to say as well that you need to factor into this too is one thing that we mentioned a lot sort of during this transfer window was our willingness to sacrifice current members of the squad to obtain these other players. We have kept Lacazette, we've kept Hector Bellerin, we've kept Elneny. We have kept a lot of, okay, people mightn't think that they're up to maybe the exact standard of something that we want, but in terms of what it would cost to replace them, it would be unrealistic at the minute. And we have maintained the depth probably more so than I thought we would have. And we've added to that, so that can only be seen as a positive. I was almost convinced that we were going to have to sell Lacazette to get Partey. I thought it was probably the only real, the only realistic option. So somebody that would maybe be marketable after the interest from PSG seemed to die off, and Bellerin, I thought Lacazette was probably the only realistic one. So the fact that we've done that without having to sacrifice too much is huge, especially with the congestion of fixtures this season.
I agree.
Sorry, go on, Jared. You go first.
I agree completely with Owen. And not only have we maintained those guys for depth, they've all played really well to start the season. Bellerin's off to a good start. He seems to be rounding back into form. Lacazette scored 3 and 3 before getting dropped. And El Neni, too. I know a lot of people don't like him or don't like that it's 2020 and we still have El Neni starting in our midfield. But, he's played well. All those guys so far, not only do they add depth when they're in there, they really have brought something to the team and been effective.
Right, we're going to go into the chat box and highlight some comments now. Owen and Jared, I'm going to call on you to save my voice from jumping through all of these. So we'll go in alternate order with myself and then Owen and then Jared to read through some of these comments. I've got to throw up some good ones now, otherwise they're going to look pretty darn stupid. Owen, here you go, fella.
Let's see.
Try and pronounce that one.
I'm not doing the names, man. I'm Irish. We do funny spellings ourselves.
I do.
What's he saying? But why did it take so long to trigger the release clause? We could have gotten him earlier so that he had some games to get used to the team and England. My answer to that would be it would probably be quite likely that we didn't want to trigger this release clause earlier because that could be sort of detrimental to negotiations with other targets such as Aouar. That's one reason. Another reason is that there's a possibility that the Partey wasn't the first choice, that it probably wasn't the most realistic financially, and it was only after the likes of Aouar, Jorginho, Diawara, whoever you want to mention, that these things failed, that it sort of backed them into a corner and it was their only real option to go for Partey. So there are two reasons I could see maybe why that didn't happen earlier in the window.
I agree with you 100%. Let's go to Rydog for Jared.
All right, Rydog says, I think Arteta wants seasoned pros to insulate our kids, and I think keeping the kids around this season might really help them next season. I think he makes a really good point. Last year we had one of the younger teams in the league. We had so many teenagers that were really good players, of guys in their early 20s, and I think he hits the nail on the head. While it's great to have all that young talent, you've got to have some sort of balance in the squad. And I think keeping Lacazette, re-signing Aubameyang, bringing in someone like Partey to kind of boss that midfield along with Xhaka, I think is great and exactly what we needed. I think that's a really good point.
You think as well, sorry, just the one that Rydog put there as well, someone that I constantly criticise and a lot of people constantly criticise is Joe Willock, who I would say could fit the mould of somebody like a Thomas Partey, that type of player. But my biggest criticism of Joe Willock is that he's a headless chicken at times. A lot of his running is pointless. Now you're taking somebody with the same sort of athletic profile as Joe Willock, and you're giving him years and years of sort of tactical discipline coaching from Simeone, and that's only a good thing for someone like Joe Willock and for some of the pressure to be relieved from him, and sort of that could really aid his progression this coming season.
There was a really good tweet I've just seen come up that Drew has highlighted. Lewis at LG Ambrose, I should say, has said, you'd have been laughed out of town if 10 years ago you'd have predicted that Mario Götze and Jack Wilshere would be free agents on deadline day at 28 years of age. And Drew has highlighted that and said people talk about talent in football like it's a God-given right and that they'll have brilliant careers. The talent and how you get there, honing your craft, is only part of the journey. Two players who had every ounce of the ability to be elite washed up before 30, and it's a crazy reminder of that. And I suppose that when you talk about Willock in that way, I sometimes struggle to see the future of what Willock is going to have at this club, because you look at the position he kind of plays, it's an attacking sort of midfield / number 8 kind of role. And our midfield is now going to change with Partey coming in. You imagine that after he played that back four against Sheffield United, that's the movement he wants to go towards as we round down in sort of really settling into what Arteta wants to get from this team. And as with Partey coming in, Partey could play in a midfield too. Aouar couldn't do that. So it does give Arteta the option to remain with that 3-4-3 formation if he wants to. But I think it would be a waste of having that extra security to add another midfielder and add to that midfield three. Is that going to be Willock? When you think about the potential of someone like Emile Smith-Rowe coming through, and you look at who else we could sign in the next window, and you also look at the potential to play Willian in the middle as well, there's a lot of options that Arteta has that could really block that path for Willock in the future. Adding to our midfield clearly showed that maybe he didn't have the same confidence for Willock and the like to step up now and to take this team forward. What I will say is that I think we've now got a great bit of depth in that midfield with Partey coming in. It goes to show that El Neni, who's come in and done really well, is now going to be used probably in most of those European Cup games earlier on. That's going to be good. He also has a big shout to start with Partey. I mean, we took out Xhaka. We didn't look a bad side against Sheffield United without Xhaka in the team for the first, say, 80 minutes of the game until we conceded. So it's the case where, and to be fair, he was on at that point when we conceded as well. So it's nice to have the option because Partey is completely different to what we currently have. Arteta's now got so many things to do. People think of him as just a defensive midfielder. He's not a defensive midfielder. I will go into that more, and I can do in the other videos on the channel. So please go and check those out because there's plenty of them. Oh, I feel like you're on the edge of your seat waiting to say something.
No, I just seen somebody put in. I'm freaking out. I seen somebody put into the chat box there, official Partey as a Gunner. So I picked up my phone and I sort of did a little panic shuffle.
Yeah, I'm constantly scrolling. I really am. There's something that did pop up on my Twitter that I want to highlight. It's not a positive bit of news, and that's that Gunnersaurus lost his job today. And while I saw a lot of people laughing about it on Facebook, on Twitter and Facebook. Actually, it's a very sad bit of news, unfortunately, because this is someone who's been at the club for a long, long time. As obviously really part of the junior Gunners. I was watching basically Sky Sports News all day, and the way that Paul Merson kind of reacted to the news as well, I thought was very poignant. He was clearly irritated by it, and I kind of got what he was saying as well, is that Arsenal are now going all in to sign Partey, and we've just let go a guy that's been at the club for a long, long time and doing this role. And I don't know if either of you two have any strong thoughts about this, but it just seems to be, a little bit sad.
I don't think it's coincidental that it's today. I think that with the negative press regarding the redundancies a couple of months back, that this was sort of a conscious decision by the club to put this in right before they amped us up, and it would all be swept under the rug and forgotten about. As you say, that's somebody who's served the club for 25 years. There was let me get this very clear. There's tweets going about saying that guy wasn't 80 grand a week. That was a joke. If you didn't get that joke, you need to check yourself. That's insane. But this is somebody that has served the club well for years. And look, I know I wouldn't do it. Do you know what I mean? So the guy's obviously a special guy. He goes out. There's sick kids attend the games every week. People with disabilities that come, and he gives them excitement, makes them feel welcome. He amps up the crowd before games, and to be cut loose like that on a day like today, when the club go out and splash 45 million on a player, which look, I totally agree they should be doing, but it's a sad thing to see done. And the fact that the club haven't really come out and given him maybe the thanks that he deserves. And
is there a feature on the website? I don't think there was there?
I don't think so. Not that I have seen. No, it could be wrong.
And that's really sad. That's really sad that there's not even been a feature. I mean, please, someone in the chat box tell me. And I have to pick up on that point that you said, Owen, that was a joke. That what Paul Merson said. He is not on 80 grand a week. This will be a guy that's on probably not a lot of money. There are people that are within the club that are like behind the food stalls, in the betting sort of shops in there as well, the stewards, and they're not earning a lot of money, even though they're working in a very rich environment. They're not on a lot of money at all. And a lot of people have been very affected by obviously the redundancies that have been made in Arsenal. I do criticise Arsenal for being very tactical about when and how they do things. I think those 50 redundancies were done just before they announced that Raul Senyehi was going to be moving on. It's pretty ironic that the club may have viewed that a lot of fans would have seen that as a positive thing and wanted to try and spin it so all the focus was going to be on him. We saw Francis Kajagao leave. He's been pretty acrimonious about the whole thing. Brian McDermott, I heard that Brian McDermott was absolutely gutted from someone I know that's a scout in the game and has told me who knows Brian, and said he was absolutely gutted to lose his job at Arsenal.
There's people giving off to us in the chat box and read the chat saying Gunnersaurus will be back once the fans can attend games again. But I'm sorry. If that's the case, just keep the guy on. Even if I'm sure if they could turn around to that guy and explain the situation and give him a reduced pay packet to take some time off away from it. You know what I mean? That's to completely cut ties with the person is just unneeded at this time. And I know we say, oh, COVID, the impact of COVID. Well, I'm sorry, that one guy's wages isn't going to be detrimental to how the club operates over the next year. So I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. It's that doesn't make it any easier.
Let's talk about another outgoing player-wise, though, Jared, and that's Matteo Guendouzi. We've not really touched on him properly this evening. He's gone to Hertha Berlin. We were told by Mikel Arteta that everyone was going to sort of get a clean slate at the start of the season, but that's seemingly not been extended, maybe, or he's just not performed the way that Arteta may have wanted him to react after that. What is it good that we're finally bringing sort of a conclusion to this saga by him going out, saving those wages, and ultimately he might actually, with a year left on his deal at the end of next season, if he has a really good season for Hertha, there might be a lot of interest in him come next summer.
100%. I think it's a great deal. We've already got enough kind of just always controversy, it seems like, of who's not playing, the wages we're paying guys that aren't in the first 11 or in the squad. So to just get one of those headaches out for the year, we're not paying his wages. I think it's kind of a free roll in that, if he goes there, performs really well, matures, looks great, and comes back, either we've got a guy who can, play a role in the first team and bring something to us, or we've got a guy who, has a year under his belt playing well, has a good showing, and potentially we can move him on at that point or find someone who will buy him, since obviously this summer no one was interested. And I know Guendouzi, I think if you ask him, he would want to hold out for a PSG or something like that. Well, the reality is those teams aren't interested. It's like, you've got to do something. He just is continually a problem everywhere he's been, including Arsenal. So I think to get him out the door and just kind of out of everybody's mind for a year, it is a good thing. And hopefully, he does play well there and has a good showing. And, we can decide next summer whether to move him on or whether he has a role. But I'm actually really glad he's gone for the year.
Let's use the last 5 or so minutes just to have another positive spin, because it's nice to be positive about things, and to look at some of our rivals that maybe haven't had such a nice deadline day. And I just want to bring up a good friend who I'm going to do that horrible YouTuber thing of saying, I think you need to go and send this guy a message, who is Terry Flewers, if you know who Terry is, at Terry Flewers. Now, Terry decided to tweet myself and Adam, who I know that you guys will know because he's been on the show and he's been on the Football Terrace. And he decided to tweet us saying that he's having a party and to let us know in an hour if we can make it. Now, this was obviously before they got absolutely smashed by the Spuds 6-1, which I'm never happy about Spurs winning. So I'm ignoring the Spurs part and laughing at United conceding 6 effectively. So that kind of backfired on Terry. And then it now looks like that it's not going to be Terry having a party. It's going to be us. So that Terry Flewers, just, maybe want to go find that. I'll find the tweet and I'll quote it a little bit later on. Once it's official, don't want to put myself in the mud, because I tweeted it when Brighton got that penalty and then Man United went up the other end and got a penalty as well. So yeah, he got one over on me that day. But yeah, if you want to do that classic YouTuber thing, just letting Terry know who's having the party this evening. You go and do your thing. Yeah. Hot nicely. Don't abuse him. Don't say anything mean. Just go ha ha. Just drop a ha ha or a Mainsley, and you won't even know what's going on in that sense. You just drop a hashtag Mainsley and have no clue why we've got 874 people currently watching, why they're all sending him in a hashtag Mainsley. So there you go.
I can't get past that he hasn't actually officially signed yet, and we're let's go back there.
The hubris that we have right now. And it's now, as soon as I come off this show, I'm going to be sitting in this pose, just staring and refreshing my Twitter feed, waiting for someone to tell me that it's happened. Now, I suppose before we wrap up, there's one thing that we haven't seen happen. It could still happen in the domestic sense, but I want to touch on it. Would either of you got any thoughts about William Saliba not going out on loan this window? Because that's not happened.
Sorry, go on ahead, Jared. Go on ahead, buddy.
I was just going to say, I'd heard different reports on why he was potentially going to be loaned out. There was talk of it maybe being a family issue where he wanted to go back to France, in which case, I don't see a problem with that. That's great if that's what he's going to need. I was a little surprised more so when they talked about him getting loaned domestically, possibly to Fulham, which I believe they've signed somebody now, so that's kind of come and gone. But, all of us, I think, had pretty high expectations of him when we signed him, that, this was our new star defender that was going to come in, week one and be our guy. And, I'm sure in practice that and in training, they look at that and say, you know, he's just not quite ready yet, which isn't a big knock on him. He's only 19 years old, coming off a year that he played a limited number of games. But I think it gives us a little bit of a reality check as far as where he is in terms of development. And I think if he does end up staying, you know, he'll get a lot out of training and being part of the team. But, you know, based on the possibility that he was going to get loaned, I'd imagine we may see him in the upcoming 6 Europa League group games, and then maybe not really at all the rest of the year in any sort of starting role. So I'm a little bit torn. I wouldn't mind seeing him get loaned out somewhere if he was going to go get 25 or 30 games. But if we can't find a spot that'll take him in where that's going to be the case, I'm fine keeping him, playing him a limited number, and seeing how he develops from there.
And also, there's I just realised I don't think actually, even if we sign Partey, there is a player or two that are going to not have a place in the squad because of the whole quota, which we've still not matched. I imagine that'll be someone like Socrates, possibly.
Got to free up number 5.
Yeah, well, true. Do they re-register them in January? Because if they do, depending on who has the longest term injury, it might mean sacrificing, say, a Mustafi until that point, because he's not due back until, I think, late November maybe. So it could be someone like that gets axed for that reason. But yeah, I imagine that they'll let go of someone. They could even turn around and just completely write off someone's contract at this point. We just don't know at this stage, but someone could be sitting in the squad and not actually being registered. So that's an interesting one to sort of keep your eye on. It might be Ozil, you never know. So he might not get registered. That would cause a bit of a stir, wouldn't it? Definitely so. That's going to wrap today's show up. I mean, I was about to say we've signed him, but we haven't yet. So there's been a completely... a hubristic, is that a word? I mean, it's been completely arrogant what we've been doing is talking about. I mean, my intro was pretty much the peak arrogance you're ever going to get from the TGT introduction. So if you've joined us a little bit later and you want to scroll back and watch the intro again, feel free. Sorry, I'm sure you will enjoy it. So yes, but thank you, Owen. Much appreciate your time this evening, fella.
No problem at all, buddy. Here, absolute trooper. You are coming on here with your throat all raw. You know, I know how much you've been struggling all day. So to work up the energy to come on and do this, legend, buddy.
I managed to get hold of some of this spray that like numbs the back of your throat, like it just completely numbs it. So I can't feel a thing back there right now.
I used to take something when I was about 17 or 18 that used to do that too. It's great. It's great.
There you go. Is that a joke? 17, 18? Is that what you're saying?
Funny old times.
That's a mic level joke. That is unbelievable. Jared, always a pleasure to have you back on, son.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me back. I think we joked last time I was on that I only come on after wins, and I think this qualifies. It's as big a win as we could get this week. So I'll take it. I definitely appreciate it.
We won yesterday, so I suppose that counts as well. I mean, it's funny, isn't it?
True.
We've done a podcast where we usually talk about the game, and we haven't talked about a Sheffield. By the way, we beat Sheffield United. There we go. Done.
We've won 10 out of 11 in all competitions. Didn't even mention it.
There you go. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. So there you go. That rounds off today's show. We had at one point over 1,300 people, like concurrent listeners, which is unreal. So thank you ever so much. I think maybe something's started to excite you guys.
I think every time I come on this, you break records. There's a theme. There's a theme here.
You're a record breaker. That's what it is. Saliba apparently going to Saint Etienne, says Haj J in the chat. So maybe that's going to happen. Interesting. I wouldn't have done business with them at all after the way they dealt with the way he finished his time there. So we'll have to wait and see. But thank you ever so much, people, for tuning in. I'd really appreciate it if you could drop a like on the video. If we don't get at least 1,300, I mean, why would I ever do a funny intro again? I'm only kidding. Only like it if you actually liked it, or if you just like Owen or Jared, any reason, just like the video. I'd appreciate it. We will see you again if my voice has improved more tomorrow. We will have to see, obviously, what happens. We may actually have to do a Partey has actually signed video, in which case with some other guests to get some variety of opinions on and get their thoughts. And who knows, if we believe in lead judges at this stage, we might be signing Aouar as well. I don't think we will. We can believe the judge. We can believe him and try and hope that we get something from it. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys. We will see you again very soon. Make sure you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And as always, expert members in the chat box, if you wouldn't mind throwing in our famous emoji of the Arsenal.